Hey, what's up, gentlemen? Welcome to the Dad Edge Podcast. I'm Larry Hagner, your host and founder of this podcast, this show, and this movement. Hey, that what doesn't get measured doesn't get done, and it doesn't get improved, and that's for sure. I wanted to share on a solo show today something that we are doing in our Dad Edge Business Boardroom Mastermind. This is for our dad business owners. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you know we've got we've got a few different programs within Dad Edge. One is the Alliance. You guys hear me talk about that one a lot. The one you don't hear me talking about very often is the Boardroom, and that's for our dad business owners. And we've been doing that now for years, and we've got it's a tight-knit, smaller group. We have about 52 men who do life with us on the daily in that group. We help them with what we call the trifecta, which is continuing to grow and scale your business to make it more profitable so you have more time and more resources to be with the ones that you love. We also help men create an extraordinary marriage. That's the second part of the trifecta. And the third one is creating an incredible connection with your kids where you're a more calm, resilient, patient parent, and you are just providing memories and adventure and experiences and conversational excellence and providing an environment of psychological safety where, believe it or not, your kids want to tell you anything and everything. Believe it or not, those things can all happen. We've been doing this group now for quite a few years, and we just rolled out something brand new called the 5 dials. And this is how one of the ways that we measure ourselves in this group, our participants. Now, what I'll tell you is the reason I'm doing this podcast and this show is to provide some value and to provide some ways that we can think about how we show up for our family and how we can actually measure those things, because a lot of us, it's very, very subjective. It's not necessarily like net worth or our body weight or our body fat, which is black and white. The numbers are what they are, and it is what it is. When it comes to relationships and when it comes to connection and intimacy and all these things that are so important, we don't know exactly how to measure those. Well, we've created a tool that actually helps us measure those very things, and it's called the 5 dials. And now you're probably wondering, well, it sounds like all the participants in the business boardroom do this. Yes, they do, but we're not going to ask our members to do anything that we're not doing ourselves. So I run the business boardroom with 3 other coaches, Jeff Bowman, Jason McKenzie, and Jake Herbert. And we have our own accountability group that we meet every single Thursday morning at 6 a.m. And we go through the 5 dials, our goals, personal, professional, fitness, net worth, our family adventures and connections and conversations and experiences, the whole 9 yards. And we hold each other to a very high level. But the reason I'm doing this podcast is I wanted to take you guys through some things that emerged as I started measuring my own 5 dials and some of the things that my family said about me when we did a certain measurement for myself and how I'm showing up. So I'm just going to kind of take you through what we do. So we have a 1-pager when it comes to these, which is basically like, 3 high points of the last quarter, the things that are what are your 3 goals for the next quarter, 5 bucket list items, a compelling 5-year vision, and what are you most excited about for the next 90 days? And we actually score all of these things. So I'll share with you a couple things. 3 high points for our last quarter that we did as a family. We did a bucket list trip to Hawaii and renewed our vows. Now, that is a trip that Jess and I have been planning for 2 years, saving up for 2 years. And we wanted to renew our vows on the beach in front of our kids. And it was really, really important for us to do it in front of our kids. And we wanted to do it in a beautiful place like Hawaii. And it was really, really cool. And I wrote it down as one of the highlights. It was absolutely one of the highlights. Also, another huge high point was I got to spend one-on-one time with each one of my kids for the last quarter. I did very specific dates with them, all 4 of them, where it was no less than 4 hours. There were no devices. There was no screen time. It was just date time, connection, all that with all my kids. And when you got 4 kids like I do, it's really important for my wife to have that one-on-one time. It's really important for me to have that one-on-one time. So we're really having to be, religious about scheduling that. The other thing too is I wanted to have a one-on-one trip with Jessica to celebrate our 20-year anniversary. We don't get to do that very often, but we did get to do it this past year, which was really, really cool. So I want to get to some of the things that we are measured by. One of them is actually what we call our boardroom score with our kids. And this is based on the family board meetings by Jim Shields. Really what this is it's a way to rate ourselves of how we're connecting with our family, how we're connecting with our kids. And we have to rate ourselves on a scale of 1 to 10. And I'll just share with you what these are. So number 1, a 5-year vision. If I were to rate this, I would be at more of a 1, like from 1 to 10, right? 1 is I don't have one. And 10 is I clearly have it mapped out and articulated. And I look at it every single week to make sure that I'm regularly reviewing it and I am moving towards that 5-year vision. I rated myself at 9 because I do use that 5-year vision a lot. I very rarely ever rate myself at 10, but I rated myself at 9 because I do have it complete, and I am moving, towards that 5-year vision of things I'm doing with my wife, things I'm doing with my kids, things that are happening in our life, right? Also, just my overall targets. That's another one. Targets and goals. If I were to rate myself a 1, it's I struggle in setting them. I struggle in acting upon them, and sometimes I struggle remembering even what they are. Now, middle of the road is I have them and I think about them regularly. And basically an 8, 9, or a 10 is I set bigger and bolder goals because of this group, and I drive quarterly targets to ensure 100% success. I rated myself an 8 because I am constantly checking in on my goals. I always look at them almost every day, sometimes every week, just making sure that I am still where I want to go. Taking action. This is the third thing I'm rating myself on. Scale of 1 to 10. 1 is I don't take action, or I start and I don't finish. 5 would be more like I take decent action, but I struggle to actually hit them all. Or like a 9 or a 10 is more I have a clear, laser, ambitious vision, and I'm going towards it every single day and holding myself to a high level. I rated myself an 8. It's not perfect all the time, but 8 out of 10 days, it is definitely on point. If I'm being a little bit nicer to myself, it's a 9 out of 10 days, but I don't like to give myself that much grace. Accountability. That's another way we are rating ourselves. Do I show up for my accountability pod? Yes or no? Do I show up on Thursdays? Do I flake my accountability? Do I have excuses for my accountability? Do I rate myself high? Do I hold myself to a high level because I don't want to let myself down or my tribe down? That one, I rated myself an 8 as well because we're constantly meeting. I show up every single week. These are the things that move the needle in our lives. Also, work-life integration. Now, this is something that, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 would be work dominates my life and I can't shut it off. 10 is more my work serves my life and my family in a way that feels right. Now, one thing I will tell you is that I gave myself really a middle of the road rating on this one. And it's because at times, my work within Dad Edge, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but my work within Dad Edge gets insanely busy. And like right now, I'm running several different groups myself. I have a couple of one-on-one coaching clients. I have 50 coaches that work for me, and I just got a new book deal. So there's a lot on my plate right now and a lot of things vying for my attention. And sometimes, man, even though I teach this stuff, do this stuff, it's hard for me sometimes to really detach from this work that I do, right? Even though the work that I do impacts my family and my family impacts my work. But I'm still a human being, and I need to know where my opportunities for growth are. So knowing that, like, hey, this is starting to creep in, work is starting to creep in a little too much, I need to make sure I'm taking active measures to make sure that I am detaching from work, that I'm 100% there for my family, and, that they have my full attention. So I rated myself a 5 on that. Not doing so great, but I'm not doing horrible either, but kind of like right there in the middle of the road. But that is what we call just an overall how we rate ourselves. Fitness score, we actually make our guys do a fitness test every single quarter. Push-ups, sit-ups, air squats, and burpees. So the assessment is done to assess our current level of just basically physical health and to monitor improvement quarter over quarter. The directions are complete each one of these exercises until failure, then immediately move on to the next exercise, no breaks in between. Count the number of reps you do with each. So push-ups, sit-ups, air squats, burpees. So I did 45 straight push-ups. Sit-ups, I did 102. Air squats, I did 62. And then burpees, I did 22 for a score of 231 reps. Now, when I go to do this next quarter, my goal is that my fitness doesn't decline. A lot of people out there, our fitness declines over time. We push our guys not to do that. We push our guys to have better fitness quarter over quarter. Better physical fitness equals better mental fitness, emotional fitness, which is super important. I'm not going to go into the net worth measurements just because these things are more private. I'm not public about these things, but I will tell you we have an entire net worth worksheet that all of our guys measure themselves through, that we measure ourselves through. Like, so for instance, like our assets, our home, vehicles, jewelry, artwork, furniture, electronics, antiques, so much more. Also cash that we have in the bank, and all of our retirement accounts is within our assets. Then we have our mortgage loan, any type of home equity line of credit, any car loans, any credit card debt or anything like that. And then we list all of our liabilities, and then it calculates our net worth. Basically, what we're trying to do is grow our net worth quarter over quarter, and we have certain goals that are associated with that. But it's fascinating when it's one of the things that it's literally front and center. It's in front of you at all times, and we're aggressively trying to grow that over time, and you have people to answer to. Now, I will say this. This is the last part where I'm going to wrap up at, and I'm going to give you guys just some opportunities of growth for myself. So we have one other scoring mechanism, and it's called the family score. Okay. Now, the directions for this is there's 10 questions, and we get rated 1 through 5. 1 is not at all. 2 is not often enough. 3 is sometimes. 4 is often, and 5 is all the time. Okay. Now, if we were to add all of these up, right, there's 10 questions. You can rate yourself all the way. The highest score you can possibly get is a 50, okay, because you're all the time. Now, here are the questions. But before I get to the questions, let me share with you who's actually answering these questions. It's my wife and my kids who are 12 and over. So my wife, my 15-year-old, my 17-year-old. I gave them this survey, and I said, I need you guys to rate me on these questions. And I'm going to go through them one by one, and I'm going to explain a couple of them. And they're like, wow, okay, so we're rating you as a dad, as a husband? And I'm like, yeah, I need to know where I'm doing well, why I'm doing well, and I need to know where I can improve and what I need to do that. And they're like, okay, cool. So the first question is, I balance my time well between family and business. Now, I rated myself, as you guys heard on the last score of work-life integration, of 5 out of 10. So like it was literally, I wasn't doing so well. At least in my mind, I wasn't doing so well. However, the perspective of my family, they said I do that pretty well. I do it often. They gave me a 4, which was pretty high. I thought they'd give me a 2 or a 1, but they gave me a 4. So that tells me I'm doing something good. Here's another one. Number 2 is I am calm under pressure and patient with all of you and everyone else. Now that one I got a 2, which was not often enough. That's what a 2 is. I was like, oh, that kind of hurts. So I asked them, I was like, explain that. They're like, you're pretty resilient. You're pretty patient, but there are times, just depending on the day or depending on the challenges or depending on whatever's going on, sometimes, you're not that patient. And the thing that makes us quite uneasy is we don't know when those times are. And sometimes they take us by surprise. So sometimes, you're just not patient often enough. And I'm like, okay, well, good to know. So that was that. Number 3 is I'm quick to admit, apologize, and learn from my mistakes. That one, they rated me a 5. I do that all the time. And I was like, wow, that's actually pretty true. I do apologize quite a bit. Number 4 is I listen attentively to you and to others. Now, this one, I did not get the best score. I got a 3, and it said sometimes. That one was tough to hear. I'm going to come back to that here in a second because the other ones are pretty good news, but I'm going to come back to this one. 5 is I'm kind, respectful, and emotionally connected to you. All of them said all the time. They gave me a 5 on that one, so that was really cool. I lead by example and model the kind of life that I want for our kids. I got a 4 on that, which was often, which was pretty cool. I'm fun to be around. That's number 7. I got an often, a number 4, which was great. I make you feel better when you're having a bad day. That was number 8. I got an often for that one. Number 9 is I do things that make you feel loved, appreciated, and supported. I got a 5 on that one all the time. And then number 10, I follow through on my commitments. I got a 5 on that all the time. I always keep my word. I always keep my promises. So out of 50, I got a 39. Now, the ones that mostly have my attention, where I'm calm under pressure and patient with you and everybody else, I know for a fact that is one of the opportunities for growth for me, is to work on my resilience. Because from time to time, our house gets very loud with 4 boys. It gets really crazy. There's always a mess. There's always craziness. There's never a dull moment. There's never a moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, we actually got everything done. It's actually quite the opposite. There's always something to do, right? Now, over time, when you feel like you're on a treadmill, that does wear down your resilience and your patience at times. That is one thing that I am really working on, and what I'm striving on the next time that my kids take this survey from me, which is actually just in about a month, I will get a higher score on that. Because right now it's sitting at a 2, not often enough. I wanted to get to a 3 or a 4, hopefully a 5 at one point. So that's that one. The next one was I listen attentively to you and to others. I got a 3 on that. I got sometimes. Well, that does not feel good to me at all. I want it to be all the time. I want you to know that when we're talking, you are the most important thing possibly in the world, and there's nothing else I am focused on. However, what I will tell you is that there are times that I get distracted. There are times where my brain is just moving, right? And I'm not giving the person, my family, in front of me the most amount of attention that they could possibly deserve. And you know what? That's nobody's fault. That's my fault. And I can be better about that. I can be so much better about that. So my goal, and I asked for my wife and my kids for specific times. They're like, I can tell, if you have your phone in your hand, sometimes it's hard to get your attention. Or sometimes you're doing something else, like you're cooking, or you're cleaning, or you're writing something down, and I'm talking to you, and I know you're not listening to me fully, even though you're like, okay, cool, I got it. And so that's an opportunity for me. So what am I doing about it? Well, what I'm doing about it now is if I have a device in my hand and somebody's talking to me, I am now putting it down. I want them to see it, and I want to have a cue for me as well that you have my full attention. The person in front of me has my full attention, period. The other thing too is if I'm doing something else, cooking, cleaning, even if it feels like it's something really important, which it usually isn't, I stop what I'm doing and I give that person full attention, because I am fighting, man, for that. I want that higher rating. I want my family to know that their dad and my wife's husband is there listening and hanging on every single word that they possibly have. That's my goal, right? So if you guys would like potentially just a skeleton copy of this, of how we do this, I'm happy to send it to you. Just shoot me a message on Instagram, shoot me a message anywhere, and I can send this over to you. But it's a way that we rate ourselves, and it's a way that we keep ourselves in check, and it's a way, quite frankly, we hold each other accountable. Last thing I'll say is this: 95%. 95%. You're wondering, well, what does 95% mean? That's the success rate. The success rate on our goals, both personally, professionally, financially, fitness-wise, faith, whatever it is, 95% success rate. If you are very clear on your goals, how you're going to do them, you decide to do them, but what really is literally the straw that breaks the camel's back, whether you're going to do it or not, is having a group of accountability. Studies have shown over and over again, and this is actually by the American Society of Coaching and Development did this study, that if people had a weekly check-in of some sort, whether it's an accountability group, whether it's a mastermind group, whether it's a buddy at the gym or whatever, if they have someone that they can regularly check in with, accountability-wise, that they have to answer to, nobody wants to let people down, right? 95% success rate with your goals, if that's what you've got dialed in. Now, if you have no accountability, but you decide what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and you at least tell somebody else about it, you have a little bit of a fighting chance at about 60%, but in most schools, that's still enough. I want to shoot for the A and go for the 95%. So listen, if you're looking for that type of accountability, if you're a business owner, we've got a program for you. Like I said, called the Dad Edge Alliance. I'm sorry, the Dad Edge Business Boardroom, the Dad Edge Business Accelerator Boardroom. It used to be called the Accelerator, but it's now called the Business Boardroom. And if you're not a business owner, that's okay. We have the Alliance for you as well. That's a great option. Head on over to thedadedge.com/alliance. Again, we can only improve what we measure. We can only fix what we know is broken. And it takes a tribe to do that. It takes a group to do that. Like-minded individuals all sharing in the same vision and the same purpose. Gentlemen, it's always my pleasure to bring you, the tools that you guys need to improve your life, improve the lives of those around you. Go out, live legendary. And for all the show notes, everything that I talked about today, all you have to do is head on over to thedadedge.com/Friday123. thedadedge.com/123. Gentlemen, thanks again. We'll see you soon.